There's a lady that she's been working with me for 7 years. Her name is Gemma. And just before I walked out on the stage, she said, please don't say any F words. I was like, oh, fuck it, Gemma. I'm not going to listen to you for a second. So there's probably the first word that I actually learned when I go to Australia. Thank you all for being tonight. One Life Club Entrepreneur Summit. This is the last city that we are visiting. So we started, obviously, One Life Club 12 months ago. We have done over, I think, about 12, 13 events all up. Started from 100 people back into one of my warehouses or offices, should I say. And then we had Jordan Belford throughout Australia, and started then with Simon Bede and a lot of amazing speakers. And here we are today, 12 months later, back in Brisbane. Tonight, you guys are going to get entertained by some amazing people. We got 4 of us that will be sharing our journey with you. There's going to be a lot of Q&As as well. Hopefully, by end of the night, you guys will take something out of this evening and implement it tomorrow in whatever the hell you're doing. I always say that, unfortunately, when it comes to any events, a lot of people, they go to events, seminars, whatever you want to call it, they get so pumped and motivated and inspired, they want to conquer the world tomorrow. 3 days later, their motivation goes down to the toilet, and they're back to the same fucking place where they were week before. So I always say, whatever, if anything you learn tonight from these amazing people, take it on board, be consistent, persistent with whatever you learn and whatever you're doing, and just keep fucking moving forward. So tonight, our first speaker we're going to have is a great friend of mine, Alborz Fallah. So one thing I always say, that in life, to me, that I value so much, I'm so critical of people that I have in my corner. Alborz is one of those people. Doesn't matter whatever business I'm involved with. If I ever need advice, or if I used to use all of his supercars, he never said no to me, and he still doesn't say no to me. He's always amazing support as a friend, as a mentor as well, in an aspect as well. And he's also the gentleman that started Car Advice, ended up selling it for $63 million to Channel 9, and now he runs another amazing company that's a lot bigger than the one that he had before, called CarExpert. But his story is phenomenal. He came to Australia when he was, I believe, about 10, 11 years old from Iran. Basically, his family came here, migrated here with nothing. And from humble beginnings, he hustled, failed many times. I always give him shit. I was like, fuck, Alborz, you're the only friend that I have that failed more times than me. And but he is also the most persistent person that I know. So we're going to end up, Simon and myself, we're going to end up sitting with Alborz, have a great conversation with him, ask him a lot of questions, and entertain you guys. So Alborz, Simon, welcome. Whoa! Welcome, Alborz.
There's a lot of people here. Hey.
I think when I was convincing him to come here, I said, it's going to be only 10 people here, small discussion. So he said, no problem, Emil, I come. And he asked me yesterday how many people you guys are having, and I told him. He said, holy shit. But welcome, Alborz. It's great to have you here. To me, I always, what I just said before, that you inspire many other people, but you're always there to share your knowledge with whoever you can, and you've been nothing but amazing support to myself as an individual as well, and you never say no to anything that I've ever asked of you. So thank you for that.
No worries. I still remember my orange Aston Martin being in your first real estate video.
Yes, I know. I called him. I said, Alborz, I need to steal your car. That was 7, 8 years ago, and like I said, you always say.
And everyone copied it.
Everybody copied it.
Everyone copied it. It was ridiculous.
And the challenge in business is when you start something, when you start innovating, we just had a discussion at the backstage, and something you said, then people start catching up, and then you always have to keep, foot on your pedal and start thinking what else is next that you can be ahead of the competitors.
Right. Yeah.
So who is Alborz? Tell these beautiful people, who are you? Where you came from?
Well, you gave me a very good intro, probably too good to be honest. But yes, you're right. I came to Australia from Iran when I was 9. So my parents, they obviously decided that living in Iran in a war zone wasn't the greatest idea. So, we came here when I was 9 years old, and exactly like you said, man, literally with nothing. Like, we had to leave everything behind when my parents left, because that was the only way to sort of get here. So, we came here. I've lived in Brisbane most of my life. I moved to Sydney for a little bit, but I've never had a real job. Like you were saying before, you're unemployable. I'm very fucking unemployable.
Didn't you once have a job at Coles or Woolies?
I tried to go for a job at Coles and Woolies. I got rejected from Woolworths. And I think that kind of started my entrepreneurial journey, because I thought if I can't fucking work at Woolworths, I'm going to have to get my shit together, right? I literally went for a job where I'd have to go scan, right? I can't do that, and then I got to get my own stuff going. So, yeah.
And now when you do shopping, do you go to Woolies or only Coles?
I refuse out of principle to go to Woolworths. It's like one of those grudge things, but yeah.
Well, that's interesting. Hopefully, company behind Woolworths, they might buy your company next with your track record.
I'm sure it's actually great, but you know how it is. Yeah.
And your first business, you were always entrepreneurial even through your young age, and you went to uni as well.
Yeah, I did. I shouldn't say too many bad things about uni. I'm technically a staff and a lecturer at UQ, but I did 2 degrees at uni. I don't think I learned much. I learned persistence at uni, because I sort of managed to finish degrees without showing up, which is kind of like what, no offense to anyone going to UQ, or any other university for that matter, but it wasn't really something that taught you entrepreneurial skills, which is ironic, because I lecture in entrepreneurship at UQ, and I feel like standing up and saying, leave. But as I said, I love my time at uni. But yeah, I started my first business when I was 10 or 11, just online. Like I remember, I think the pivotal moment in my life was being in year 5 at Ironside Primary School, where we had this librarian who was obviously very internet obsessed, and we're talking like 95, 96, a long time ago. I'm pretty old, and he was showing us how to make websites, and I was like, this is like a whole new world, right, of internet stuff that no one really cared about, and the fact that I could make something, it really sort of blew me away, and I just basically stopped caring about anything else, and it was good, because that's sort of what it took. It was back in the day where if you wanted to build something, you had to actually build it. These days, I feel like there's a lot of consumption happening. I find myself doing the same thing. It's called doom scrolling, just like on Instagram. It's like, Jesus, what happened to the last hour of my life? But back then, there was none of that, right? So it was all about building. So I think that's what a lot of people probably in their early 20s now probably suffer from a lot of overconsumption.
Yes, which is interesting. Having that entrepreneurial spirit, you started one company, and second, and third, and I think one of the interviews I did with you, you said you failed 16 times before you made it. But how the fuck did you stay persistent 16 times? I mean, don't you get tired of like, fuck man, I just failed 6 times. I think I'm just going to go back to Woolies.
It's actually funny you say that, because when my 16th business was an internet cafe. Which, by the way, was the worst fucking idea I think I've ever had. Because we had like 30 computers, or whatever, 20-something computers, and we had kids coming in for $3 an hour. It was like a babysitting service. And I never did the most basic business plan where I went and wrote, okay, if I had the full place full at $3 an hour, and I sold 5 Mars bars an hour, that still doesn't fucking pay much. Never did it. I was too young. I was like 19. I never really thought about it. But I learned a lot of swear words from like 10-year-olds back then. Like, it was a bit of a re-education for me. Once that business closed, I genuinely thought, I think I'm done. Like I was like, I think this is it. I'm going to go and work somewhere and try and get a job, which made my parents very happy because they're not entrepreneurial at all. And I actually managed to get a semi-decent job at UQ for a very brief period of time, where I was doing IT help desk, and I realized very quickly I would fucking hang myself if I did this. No offense to anyone doing IT help desk, but it was no, but you know what I mean. It wasn't about the job. It was just that I hated working in this corporate style environment. I remember talking to a friend of mine at the time, and he said the same thing as you. He's like, you're clearly not made to fucking be an entrepreneur. You failed so many times. And he said, why do you think you failed? And I said, I don't know. I've always tried to find a niche and try and make money. Right? And he goes, have you ever considered doing something you actually like? And I was like, no. This weird question, right? I always sort of thought, how do I make money? And so he goes, what do you like? I said, I really like cars. And he goes, what do you know about cars? I said, fuck all. I said, I love cars, like I read about them, but I couldn't fucking change a windscreen wiper. I still can't today. It frustrates the fuck out of me trying to do that sort of stuff. He said, why don't you just do something in a category you love? And that's when I started Car Advice. Like literally, while I was at UQ, supposed to be helping someone probably fix something, I registered Car Advice. It cost me $35. I remember it. I was thinking, fuck, is that worth it?
What year was this?
2006.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Very similar time, Simon, when you were starting Culture King, correct?
Yeah, well, but that was the most perfect, like, to think that domain you went
I know,
there,
can
it's
you imagine?
available,
I know.
you know.
I couldn't believe it was available. I couldn't believe it.
Which is interesting. Was there a good value? Now you got 63 fucking million reasons to say it was a good investment.
Yeah,
Spending
I mean,
$35.
as you know, it takes a while to go from domain to a thing. It's like 10 years of my life that everyone sort of focuses at the very end of it, but there's a lot in the process. You know, we nearly went out of business so many times, and you know how it is.
Yes.
And I've never met anyone that's successful in business that hasn't gone out of business or almost gone out of business at least once.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So
Yes.
it was a very difficult 10 years, but we went through a GFC like literally as we were starting, which was really good because I learned how to deal with it. Because when we started CarExpert, we went through a fucking pandemic.
Yes.
Like literally, we launched it, and then like 3 months later, it was a pandemic. I'm like, fuck, not again. And I thought,
I know a little bit more now.
yeah. Car Advice was an awesome journey, man. Like I learned so much. I learned pretty much everything not to do as well as everything to do. So with this business, we've obviously taken that to the
And
next
Car
level.
Advice, for many of you, if you don't know what Car Advice is, obviously, you know, the word itself tells you, but what exactly business did?
So when I was running the internet cafe, one of the side businesses that we had was a web development company.
Yes.
I learned two things from that. One is that I hated dealing with customers one-to-one, especially when the market value is so little. You know, like if you're making like 20 grand out of a customer and you have to do all this work once and you got to start again, it's really not worth it.
Yes.
Except that I was charging like $1,000 for a website. That's how stupid I was. But this car dealer came up to me one day and said, I want you to build a website for me to list my cars online. And I literally hand-coded this system where he could upload his photos, he put his little watermark on and get everything up and running. And I charged him $1,000. You fucking believe it. Like, it took me like God knows how long. You know, if you do that today, it'd be like a 300 grand project. Like, seriously. Anyway, I charged him $1,000. But what I realized was the automotive web in Australia, the digital automotive stuff, was so backward, and there was no one out there doing it. Now, what I should have done was actually taken that system I built and built car sales competitor to it. Because that is a $9 billion business today.
Yeah, fuck.
But I was like, fuck, I've watched a lot of Top Gear. Hey, I just want to drive cool cars. So how do I do that? And at the time, there was a business in America called Autoblog, which some of you may have heard of. And Time Warner had just bought it, I think for $40 million USD. And I looked at it and went, this is such a shit website. All these guys doing are writing about cars and like driving around in cars. Who the fuck would pay $40 million for this?
Yes.
I was like, fuck, I could do this. So I started Car Advice, and I literally went and looked at Autoblog and see how they did things, and we just improved and improved and improved it. And it was their model, we just brought it to Australia.
So you started basically doing reviews on cars.
Well, they wouldn't give me any cars to review.
Yeah.
You know, when you're like in your early 20s, going up to Lamborghini and saying, oh, can I drive that? They just sort of laugh and shut the door pretty quickly. So it took a bit of time, took a bit of building. Went through a whole journey of being rejected many, many times, going to dealers, pretending I was going to buy it to get to drive the car. Everything you can think of. You got to do it, right? You got to hustle.
Yes. And so when you started, did you focus on a specific category of cars? Like it was more affordable and then went to luxury, or?
See, that's what a smart person would have done. No, like, as I said, I watched way too much Top Gear growing up.
Yeah.
And it was really, I just wanted to drive the really cool stuff. And that really put us back by a couple of years, because the money is not in the cool stuff. The money is in your everyday mum and dad cars, right? And after about a year and a half, 2 years, that became very obvious. All the advertising dollars, all the data dollars, all the things that we needed to do in automotive was in normal cars.
Yes.
So at some point we had to swallow our pride and start driving some Kias.
Yes.
And we did, and they were great cars. And that's how we sort of built the revenue. And by the time I sold it, it was doing about 20 mil revenue. Extremely profitable. It was basically printing money, and that was one of the problems with it, because if it wasn't so easy by the end, we would have done a lot more. We would have we were going to list it, but we had an offer to sell it, and that was a mistake. We should have listed it. And we were going to list it and go against car sales, actually follow the consumer down the path of transaction, and that would have really increased the value of the business. But instead, because it was just, we're making somewhere around 5 to 6 mil EBITDA
Yeah.
after all the expenditure.
Shit. So like 30% off the...
More actually,
Wow.
but like I was going racing at the company money. It was like the fucking
Yeah.
printing money cash machine. But that, as I said, that makes you not make the smartest decisions sometimes.
Yeah.
So with this business, I learned what not to do again.
Yes.
Which is we actually follow people with CarExpert all the way down the path of transaction. So we built the largest new car audience again. Took us about 3 years.
Instead of 10 previously.
Instead of 10 previously, because we knew what to do. We took the whole team with us. But in this business, we actually follow someone down all the way to purchase, which is far more profitable than anything else. Yeah.
Which is really interesting because you sold car advice for $63 million to Channel 9, and then later, all the best staff from car advice, you took them with you and started CarExpert.
You can say that, yes. I probably it is very accurate, yes. Yes.
And so you got basically the best team from the past on a new journey, CarExpert.
Yes. Look, when I left, I wouldn't have left, in all honesty, if there was a sense of, control or ownership over the business, right?
Yes.
But unfortunately, as is the case with M&As, as you would know, and you would definitely know, Simon, the companies that tend to come over the top don't really ever preserve the culture. And the culture is always the people. It's not anything else. It's the people that make the business, right? And it's very hard to do a good M&A unless you're buying like a really cool digital asset, like Facebook buying Instagram. It didn't need the founders. But with a business that requires the culture to continue, if the founders and the staff aren't there, it doesn't work. And when they bought us, they put a corporate person on top who didn't understand anything about cars, didn't understand anything about the culture, didn't understand anything about the business. And within a very short period of time, I was like, I can't stay here. And then when I left, quite spectacularly, I took a lot of the staff with me. And then, about 6 months later, they actually turned the website off. You can believe it. So, they literally paid 60-something million bucks
and
for
wrote it off to zero.
I don't know what their accounting does, but I guess so. If you go to it now, it doesn't exist. And it's really sad because, you build property and you sell it. You can tell people, I built that, right?
Yes.
You can go to your stores. I can't even fucking tell anything to my kids. I used to have this website that fucking doesn't even exist anymore.
You got to go that way back when.
Yeah, I do. That's exactly what I do. I go to the archive.org and go, here it is. I swear it's real. Sure, Dad, sure.
You just won lottery, Dad.
Yeah, sure. You built stuff, Dad.
It's easier to convince them.
Yeah.
What would you say was your hardest part of your scaling up your business from very young age to 10 years?
I think the hardest thing is belief. It's really hard to believe that you're actually going to succeed at the beginning. And I remember when I started getting some deals. I remember. I'll give you this story. I think it was 2007 or 2008. Car sales came to us and said, we want to put our little widget of buy a car on your website on the sidebar. Yes. And I was like, oh yeah, what is this going to be? What are we going to get for this? He came back and offered, we'll give you 15 grand a month. And I was like, 15 grand a month? Holy fuck. Like for me, that was an insane amount of money at the time. I thought this was like I could retire. That's what I was thinking as like a 24-year-old. Little did I know that they'd put that on our website to steal all our data, right? Because their little widget would tell them everything, how many people are coming, what they're looking at, what pages are showing. Basically, we were giving our main competitor all our data for 15 grand a month. And I thought I was a fucking genius. Once we worked it out pretty quickly, because what they would do is go to advertisers and say, you don't need to spend on car advice. We've got all their data anyway. You know what I mean? But that's the thing. There's a lot of learning.
So how long did it take you to catch that?
When one of the advertisers said, look, we don't need to advertise on you guys. Car sales already has your data set. And I was like, how the fuck do they have our data set? They're like, I don't know. They must have something on your site. I'm like, I think I know what that is.
Wow.
Yeah, I love the people. I actually love car sales as a business. They're ruthless, and they're actually quite entrepreneurial. So I have a lot of respect for them.
And they got monopoly now.
They do, and I learned one thing from them, which they did to me back in 2014. One of the founders there, he had this technique called a flirt and fuck, where he pretends he wants to buy a business, which is the flirt. And then he learns everything, and then he fucks you. and I learned that from him when he did it to me. And it was great, because I basically handed everything over thinking, fuck yeah, here's payday. And then they use everything from our website
and then you end
to
up
build a competitor.
Fucking you, basically.
Yeah. I was like, fuck again, these guys are really good, hey. You got to have respect for good competitors.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And at some point when you were scaling your business, which many businesses do hit that brick wall where you're like, fuck, I'm on the verge of giving up. I'm on the verge of going broke, or whatever you want to put it. And you find a way and the strength within yourself still to push it through.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've been there many times.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we were down to not being able to pay staff at one point, thinking, like we have to, the business is insolvent, basically. I mean, it's trading insolvent if you can't pay your staff. And then going out there and raising $20,000 for 20% of the business, if you can fucking believe it. And that guy got a pretty good return.
Jesus.
And he was a pain in my ass for 9 years. He got a really good return. Like, if obviously got diluted along the way, but I think about $9 million return for him out of 20 grand. Pretty good investment. And I remember my parents offering me that money, and I was like, oh, I can't take it, because I didn't believe. I wasn't sure if the thing was going to be around either. Like, you think you can do it, but when you're on your lowest point, and you don't want to fuck your family, like you don't want to take their money. So I kind of always think about, I should have taken my parents' money, because they would have been a much better journey. But then I would have to listen to my dad complain. I think maybe it was worth not having $9 million. I can't. But the scalability is the hardest thing in business. You always hit a point where you either just stay there and you're happy, or you go to the next level. Like with my current business, we're now at 52 full-time employees, which is more than we ever had at CarExpert. And seeing that scale and seeing that really take on what is a juggernaut in terms of car sales with new car leads and seeing it grow week on week on week on week is I always sometimes don't want to look at the figures, because I'm like, I don't know if these are real. I go and check like analytics like 3 fucking times, going, is this actually growing as much as I think it is? Like the traffic and the leads. So it's awesome. Like it's awesome to have the belief in yourself after having done it to actually go and do it again. But that first time is really hard. So I think for a lot of the guys who are listening, don't think that we know something you don't. I've been in the worst situations thinking this is not going to work, and just keep persisting and persisting and persisting until it does.
That's what I always say, that knowing you for a while now, you're one of the most persistent people.
I don't have another choice. Like honestly, maybe that's one of the things. Like as I said, I came here with my parents with nothing, right? I grew up poor. No other way to describe it. My parents are amazing, the best parents I could ever hope for, but they left the country at a very late age and started anew. It's very hard to start a career in a new country and make money. So when I grew up, I remember not being able to go to like school camp because I couldn't pay $80 for the camp and stuff like that, right? And barely getting by. And I was like, I don't want to be poor. And I knew the only way not to be poor was to actually try and do something myself, because selling your time for money, as you both know, is the greatest scam of all time. Like I don't tell it to my staff, actually. Hopefully it doesn't get reported. Unless you work for CarExpert, selling your time for money is. But actually, in saying that, most of my staff have shares in my business, so they actually have more than just selling their time for money. But you know what I mean? Like you've only got the only thing you have in life is time. If you sell that for money, then you're never actually going to get too far.
Time is like water in this glass. The more you drink it, by the end it'll be empty. And that's life as well.
Gray hair it is. It's the only thing I've got, and that's why, like with this business, I'm pushing so hard because I know what to do now, and I know that time is the only thing that matters. So instead of like car advice, I feel like I wasted the last 2 years of car advice because we'd sold it and it was profitable. I'm just waiting for the second of the payouts to come. But in this business, man, like I've never worked so hard in my life. It's funny because when we sold it, and I was like, oh, now you can like see the kids more and retire. And I was like, yeah. But it's like, I feel like if it wasn't for the pandemic, I wouldn't know what my kids were called because I had to stay home and see them. But yeah, it's good. Like I love it, man. I love working. Call me a workaholic, but I actually really enjoy winning and I really enjoy working.
But you are true entrepreneur, and I have this discussion with Simon. I mean, Simon has sold part of his company for $300 million 2 years ago. And I feel like I didn't know Simon when Culture King when he was fully involved. But I feel like knowing him now, he's working, in my mind, harder than ever, creating, but obviously for different reasons. It's just the hustle, the drive. And why do you do it, Simon?
It's just the fun, and that's the game of entrepreneurship, that it's that feeling of visioning something in your head and making it happen, that feeling of being right when everyone's going left you know, and you go
That's
right
a big
and
one,
it
isn't
wins. Oh, it's just,
There's nothing better than someone telling you can't do something.
yeah. And I think that's, for an entrepreneur on the journey, we all go through those waves, those low points where we doubt ourselves, like, is this going to work? Should I have listened to the naysayers? Were they right the whole time? You know, but I think this is where it's so powerful, and, you know, for ones sharing the stories and stuff, that I know when I was exposed to it, it's like, it's possible. Like, I could see the light, and I know if you just keep chipping and find a way or make the way, that you can hit those breakthroughs. And I think, you know, your story is so epic, like for Brisbane based in the hometown, you know, to be able to build a business at that size, and you just saw a gap in the market and you seized it. You followed off Autoblog, but then reinvented your own way. And even the way you consider of like reflecting back, you know, the car sales journey and all the lessons along the way, you can see all that knowledge is just stacked, and now to go a second run at it.
Well, it's amazing that they allowed me to do a second run at it. But,
yeah.
I mean, I love cars, and, you know, and I know everyone says this, but I think the subject matter is so important for me.
Yes.
If I was doing it on like watches, right? I'm wearing an Apple Watch, which is quite humorous to you guys because you're actually wearing pretty decent watches. But like,
they are both from China, $20 each.
I really doubt that. But like, if it was on a subject matter I didn't love,
Yes.
it would be hard to be so motivated. But I
Yes.
genuinely love cars, and I love the industry, and, you know, I know how to do it, right? I've lost the doubt of, is there someone doing it better? And the answer is there isn't, right? There might be someone out there who's going to do it better, but at the moment, I feel like what we're doing is quite innovative and quite forward-thinking.
Yes.
And that's the belief you need to have. And it's fucking hard sometimes to think that. Like, I've spent so much fucking money at Culture King, it's ridiculous, because my kids love going in there because the fucking music's cool. It's a good vibe. They sell the same shit as other places, but you fucking go there to buy. And I'm like, why the fuck are we here? Like, because it's a cool place, right?
Yes.
And it's a great concept that works. And I didn't realize Simon owned it. I would have fucking asked for a discount. But anyway.
I think Simon would go there and sell you more stuff if he knew you were
I got
coming.
a fucking chain for my kid from there. It was like $400. I was like, get this from eBay for like $30.
It's the brand. It's the brand.
It's the brand. There you go.
But when you were going through the process, you know, you're making 30% EBITDA. Like, why did you sell in that process?
So it's a very good question. I mentioned before we had someone who put in a small amount of money that had quite a substantial shareholding. We had raised a couple of times. Like, one thing I've learned, the raising process, I'm really familiar with, having now done it multiple times across both my businesses. But by the end of it, we were actually going down a path of an IPO. We had our prospectus. We even had an ASX code. We were about 10 days away from listing, right?
Shit, so you'd spent all that money
it was like
too.
800 grand on the listing, as you know, right? You've done it. It's a pretty tumultuous process to get that prospectus and do all that shit. But at the same time we were doing that, when we tried to sell the business, no one wanted to fucking buy it.
So you actually tried to sell it before?
We tried to sell it about a year and a half prior.
And this is when
This is the flirt and fight. I never forget, I'll tell you a story. I was on a flight from Brisbane to Hong Kong, and the offers were meant to come in at 4 p.m. while I was in the middle of the air, and there was no fucking Wi-Fi in the plane. Right? So I'm like, I'm going to fucking take off, Paul, and I'm going to land rich. That's what I was thinking, right? Like, I was like fucking excited. I literally took off. I landed in Hong Kong. I got out. I was fucking getting Wi-Fi working. And I got a message from one of my colleagues at work, and he's like, oh, yeah, we got an offer, man, but it's not very good. Give me a call when you can. And I was like, oh, that doesn't sound very good. You know, we were hoping to sell it for maybe 20, 25. I was fucking happy with 20. And I give him a call, and he's like, I said, what's the offer? He goes, oh, CarSales giving us offer for 4 million. I was like, 4 million?
CarSales.
So that's like less than 1 times revenue, or 1 times EBIT. How's that even fucking possible? He said, oh, it's just a bullshit offer. They were fucking us the whole time. And I literally sat at a bench at Hong Kong airport like the most defeated person. I must have thought, someone must have gone past and thought, that guy's going to kill himself momentarily. I was so fucking sad. But, you know, when we tried to sell it, no one wanted it. It's like supply and demand, right?
Yeah,
Everyone's like, why are you trying to sell it?
We talk about this quite often.
Why are you trying to sell it? The minute we went, you know what, fuck you guys, we're not selling it. We're going to list it. We're going to build this up. It's going to be fucking amazing. We're going to list it. Literally, we made that decision. We went hard, and we went really hard, and then we started growing even like exponentially for the next sort of 18, 24 months. And then obviously word got out that we were listing it on the AFR. I think the Street Talk wrote a story about it, and then fucking everyone that was ever going to look at buying us came back, including car sales. And we were like, go fuck yourself. So we didn't give them everything under NDA for a third time.
Yes.
We learned our lesson. Although I did it again at CarExpert, I got to be honest. It was really, sometimes just go, how the fuck did you do that again? But then we did that process of listing, and we had basically a bidding war between Channel 7 and Channel 9 to buy the business.
Yes.
And as I said, we had 10 days to go, and we were in some high-rise building in Sydney CBD where we signed the contract. And I remember the guys were trying to talk me into signing it. And the main reason was, and it's kind of accurate, but it was like, if you list, yes, you might get to listing price of over 100 mil, and then you might go to who knows where, but you won't be able to sell any shares for a long period of time. You're under escrow, all that shit. Get your money and just be fucking happy. It's
on the table.
Thing. Yeah, and you know, as someone who'd never made that kind of money in my life, it was kind of hard to say no to a big check.
Yes.
But when I think back at it now, it was probably the dumbest thing I've done.
Yes. But at the time, I remember you telling me a story when you received that money in your bank account. You couldn't believe it either.
No, I went to an ATM and just kept printing fucking...
I think Simon
did that too, yeah.
Simon did it as well.
I got my first Dolomite account and went to the ATM.
Man, how weird. You're like, fuck, is that real? Like,
Yeah.
the guy behind me was like, this guy's fucking retarded. and I sent a screenshot to my wife, because you know, like your notifications on NetBank, you're like, you know, you've just been paid this. It was like, it wouldn't fit on the screen. Yeah. I was like, holy fuck, someone actually paid me that amount of money. And it was really funny because the other shareholders got paid the day before. Yes. Because we were directors, there was some weird extra paperwork, and I thought, oh fuck, it's not going to happen. Something's gone wrong. I'm not going to get paid. But yeah, it was a surreal experience to go from being broke to not being broke.
I called him the next day, tried to sell him a fucking house. I was like, this guy is loaded. I'm selling him a $5 million home, literally.
Yeah, and the first piece of advice I got was don't spend anything for a month.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's why he couldn't sell me a house in that first month.
I know. But now I sell you everything. But we're friends now, so there's a relationship there. CarExpert, new company, which is interesting what you just said before. You had Channel 9 and Channel 7 that were competing to buy your business out. Yeah. CarExpert was born. You learned a lot, implemented into this new idea, or similar in a way, and kept pushing. And now, Channel 7 is one of your shareholders.
Yes,
correct me if I'm wrong.
Channel 7 bought into our business about a year later, because they were like, so let me get this straight. You guys sold out to 9 and started again, and we can get into this now for cheaper? I'm like, yes. So they did. They bought 15% of our business, and we're basically the automotive supplier of all data and content to 7's entire network, whether it's 7 News or 7 Life or all the other assets that they own.
Which obviously gave you more traffic to your platform as well.
Yeah, and credibility as well. Obviously, when you have a big media company behind you, it's really helpful to get the audience and get the attention of manufacturers. So, you know, our content shows up in everything from Australian community media newspapers to 7 to we're on TV all the time. If anyone watches The Voice, we sponsor the shit out of that show. You know, like there's a lot of branding that happens with being part of a media company, which I don't watch TV, and I know a lot of you guys probably don't either, but some people do, apparently. And so we do see that effect as well.
And with CarExpert, what is the end goal there?
We're going to list it. Yeah, if you hear me say I'm going to sell it, slap me. I don't care how fucking big the check is.
Are you just saying that so somebody else comes and makes another offer now?
I hope not. No, I feel like you got to do it once. I don't know. What's been your experience? Would you sell it or would you list it again?
Well, I suppose
you did both.
Australia's better though for listing than the New York Stock Exchange. Just I know from my experience in the SOX compliance and the regulatory requirements is just so brutal and so slow, and it's built for that whole corporate slowing. It's really kills a lot of entrepreneurial spirit. Right. And so I suppose I didn't think it would be as bad in that listed environment. And I got advice from others and like, you're going to fucking hate it when it's listed. Oh, no, it'll be fine. Like, because one of our core values we had, it's better to ask forgiveness than permission, right? Like just fucking take action, do it. I tell this story how I just put up this facade in Melbourne. Like we didn't have approval and we just did it anyway. But that value, when you're a public company, it's impossible because everything needs a sign-off, everything needs a lawyer to check it, everything, and just so much it kills that intensity and energy when you have around an idea because people are like, oh, it's got to go through all these gates, it's too hard.
And with you, just want to execute today.
I'll just keep doing what I've been doing rather than roll the dice on something. And that's what I really experienced. And I think for myself, you know, like when we did the deal, you know, we're still 300-something million turnover. Like, but I think, and as AKA now, 700 million US, a bill Aussie. But we're, I think you actually got to be bigger than that in my retail experience.
Over there.
Just because of how expensive, like all our PwC audit, it's like 8 mil a year. Like
That's
it's
crazy.
fucking insane. It drives me nuts. Like just you don't need to pay any of that if you weren't listed. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, hopefully he's listing it. Yes.
But Australia's a lot easier though. Like, but it still comes with it. I suppose as still as you got like voting rights and as much as you can do it.
I feel like the reason we're going down that path is I feel like because we're going into Asia with this business.
Yes.
Yeah.
So as we sort of take the new car business in Australia to its efficiency, like about 80-90% of what we can do. We are going to go into Asia, and the CEO that we have actually comes from a company called iCar Asia, which was listed on the stock exchange and got sold for 200 and something mil last year. So he's sort of done it. He gets the process of listing and being in the Asian markets.
Yeah.
But he hasn't done it as Australia, which is what we've done. So we sort of put those things together.
Yes.
So we're going to go and do it through acquisition, buy a whole bunch of things in Asia and take our tech and our skill set over there. And as a listed entity, I feel like you get a much higher return. But again, I will be escrowed. My shares won't be able to be sold. The thing that worries me is people panic when you sell shares, when you're a founder.
Well, it's an event. They advertise it. The media can grab it. So yeah.
Yeah. So, but I've done the other thing. I really want to experience the journey of listing and growing. So it's a huge, automotive is such a big category. If you do it right, it's very lucrative.
Which is interesting. One thing you just said, that you are the owner of the company and you employ somebody who's probably more skillful than you are to be CEO of the business.
Oh, fuck yeah. I tried being CEO. I was CEO at CarAdvice for a little while, a couple of years. CEO at CarExpert for about 6 months. I did double the revenue, but I think people were about to fucking leave if I didn't stop yelling at people. You got to know what you're good at, right?
Yes.
I'm really good at certain things. I'm really good at getting projects off the ground. I'm really good at getting things built quickly, getting things tested. I have a good intuition for what works and doesn't work. But in terms of managing people, I'm probably the worst. Like I hate doing it. It actually annoys me because I expect everyone to know exactly what I know. And they don't, and of course they don't. They're probably doing things that I don't know, and I'm not very good at communicating that. So having a really good CEO like we have, who's really amazing at that perspective and works really well with the founders is fantastic. So I've managed to work out exactly what I need in that role so that my employees are happy and don't want to kill themselves.
Do you think a lot of companies a lot of owners or CEOs of their own business make mistakes by micromanaging and thinking, well, it's my baby, I have to be in control of it, I know how to run it?
I mean, some of them might be really good at it. I mean, I can't speak for others. There's plenty of good examples of founder CEOs. Obviously, everyone looks at people like Facebook and Apple as the prime examples, but there's fuck tons more examples of terrible founder CEOs, in my opinion.
Yes.
And I think they're actually, in some ways, in most cases, they're different people. Particularly at a late stage, CEO is a very different person to the founder, right? And these days you have a good COO that runs it, which is basically a CEO, but the founder keeps the CEO title because it looks good on the business card. I'm not like that. I don't give a fuck about a title. So for me,
you just want to make the business.
Well, for me, is I want to focus on what I'm really good at, which is like getting new innovations off the ground, new projects off the ground, and not having to, manage someone complaining because their chair is not right and the office environment and the park. I'm just fuck. That's someone else's problem, man. I don't know. I'm not diminishing the CEO's role, but like, there's a lot of other shit that would frustrate the hell out of me if I had to deal with it. Yeah.
And so with, you're very knowledgeable about the whole Google space. A big part is the SEO and stuff. How, with the new AI changes coming in effect, how do you think that could affect your business, the opportunities, the gaps?
Look, it's a really good question, actually. No one really knows. We're lucky that we're in a business where a computer can't test drive a car. At the end of the day, realistically, you can't get a computer to review a Toyota Corolla and tell you what it thinks because we can't physically drive it. However, ignoring all that, it's a problem for any person in the media because at the moment, you can ask ChatGPT or even Google's Barb a question, and it reads everything on the internet and gives you an answer, right?
Yeah.
And that data has been scraped without permission in most cases.
Yeah.
And that's all well and good at the moment. But if by doing so, it puts those publishers out of business, then that data never gets updated. Exactly. So when it comes to something new, there's no one to ask. There's no one to.
That's interesting.
That's a great point.
It's a weird circle because if ChatGPT and Google fuck everyone in the process, yes, it will put a lot of.
So we're going to end up being more stupid in the future. Is that what you're saying?
Well, if there's no humans making content because it's no longer profitable because no one uses it because ChatGPT answers all the questions, then that content never gets updated for ChatGPT to use.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Therefore, it eventually runs out of new stuff to learn, and then fuck knows where it's going to get that information from. But there's a lot of legal stuff around that as well, because who really owns the content? When you ask ChatGPT a question, he doesn't know shit. It's just learnt it from humans and is answering that question without giving any credit to humans or any financial gain to those humans. So it's a really interesting time for that business. I'm just lucky, as I said, I'm in an industry where AI can't review a car.
Yes.
Yeah.
I hope. I really do hope, actually.
And
They'll be fucked if it can, but I don't think it can,
there's a lot of people here that are about to start their business journey, and it's not easy. What is one piece of advice that you can give them? What's ahead of them?
A lot of pain, a lot of long nights and no money. I think the thing that really got to me was, especially in my early 20s, was my friends were all in steady jobs, earning reasonable incomes, going out, having a lot of fun, and I have no fucking money and not going out and not having a whole lot of fun. It's changed now. I still work really hard. That's probably harder than I've ever had, but I go out a lot more and I enjoy life a lot more.
Yes.
That was really hard,
Instead of your ugly Falcon that you had, you got 10 supercars.
I was so embarrassed by my purple Falcon. From the fact that I used to get stuck in third gear, I used to park it about 1 kilometre from the valley when I went out on the rare occasions and no one would see me in it. It's good character building.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's going to be really hard. You're going to struggle and you're probably going to fail a few times unless you're really good. But even if you're really good, you're probably still going to fail a few times before you actually get somewhere that's successful. And what most people do is they're usually one step away from success and they give up. Or in my case, you're 16 steps away from success. But but they give up. My saying is, if you never give up, you'll eventually be successful.
Yes.
And I genuinely believe that. Like, if you don't give up, if you keep trying, if you pivot, you change your business plan, you change what you do, you'll eventually hit a point with a business that it starts to generate a reasonable amount of money. And then if you scale it, it starts to generate a shit ton of money. And that's the sort of business you want to get to, where it doesn't really need you, and you don't have to sell your time for money. It operates without you.
Advice to people that want to get rich fast?
It doesn't happen. It's non-existent.
So you can't give us a recipe how we can all be
I
multimillionaires overnight?
I see it on Instagram every 15 minutes. There's always some guy saying, I don't know, buy fucking ATMs, put it somewhere, or some other dumb shit. You always see it. I don't know, maybe that works. But, it's actually funny. I was having a conversation with Simon. I was saying, you guys are the only guys that do this that actually have the credibility to do it. I see so many internet business coaches who fucking done nothing with their life except make money by telling other people how to make money.
Yes, and they don't know how to do it.
Well, I don't think they've got the credibility to do it. So, that's why when people ask me for advice, I'm like, dude, I'm honestly the same as you. I've just gone through hell to get here. The only way you're going to learn is to also go through hell. And I can tell you everything, but none of it may apply. All of it may apply, right?
Yes.
But all I can say, the only advice I can say is to keep fucking going. If you're going to hell, keep fucking going. Because you got to come out the other end. Most people stop and turn around and go back.
Yes.
And then when they're 50, they regret it, right? I talk to so many people that are a bit older than me, and they're like, oh, I wish I persisted. But, we had kids and we had this, and I had to make ends meet. And I had all that shit too, right? Like, I had all that shit too. And I was very close to, 1 month not making my fucking mortgage repayments on my house when we just had a kid, and just having to basically scrape it together to pay it, a few weeks late. I don't know. We went through some hell in the process, right?
But you still kept pushing.
You got to keep pushing. I had no other, in my mind, I had no other option. I knew that I'd be miserable as fuck if I went and worked for somebody else. And I didn't want to do that. Listen, you only live once, right? So may as well give it a go.
How good is Alborz? Big applause.
Yeah.
It's been truly pleasure. It's been truly pleasure having you here, and I think you're a true inspiration to many people. And coming from Brisbane, it's a pretty special. So we value your time, and I'm sure we're gonna bring you back here in the future again.
Anytime. And Brisbane is an amazing place. And when I started my first business here, I don't think the word entrepreneur was a thing, and startup certainly wasn't a thing.
Yes.
And now the community is so strong, and it's so amazing. But what you said at the beginning before we came out is so true. A lot of people will listen to this or listen to podcasts, read, do all that shit, but actually start and actually have the motivation to get something going. And that's the most important part, right? There's so many people out there. I remember when I was going to high school, they were so much smarter than me. Right? And there's so many of you guys in this room that are probably way smarter than me if you did an IQ test. But persistence is the real currency. In many cases, it's persistence that's the real currency. If you just keep going, you'll eventually succeed. Anyway, I'm going to fuck off now to the airport.
Thank you, Alborz. Thank you. It's been a pleasure spending time with Alborz over so many years, and he's always, anybody that talks to him is always happy to give people time. And I hope that you guys got something out of this conversation with Alborz. One thing that I always get out of Alborz, doesn't matter how hard anything gets in front of me, just keep fucking pushing, keep moving forward.